Have you ever dropped a dime without realizing you just lost a fortune? What if I told you that a tiny everyday coin, the kind you might overlook in your junk drawer, could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Some of these dimes have sold for more than the price of a brand new luxury car, even a house. In this video, we're counting down the top 10 most valuable one-dime coins that could be hiding right under your nose. From rare minting mistakes to forgotten historical treasures, these dimes might just change your life. Stick around, because the number one coin on this list will absolutely blow your mind. And hey, if you're even remotely into coin collecting, American history, or just love the thrill of discovering hidden treasures, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. First up, we've got a humble-looking 1967 Roosevelt dime. And yes, this one's in circulated condition. At first glance, you might think, this old thing? I've seen dozens like it. But hold on, because the story behind this little silver-colored coin is enough to make your jaw drop. 1967. It was the summer of love, the Beatles were everywhere, and, while the world was changing fast, the U.S. Mint made a change that most folks missed. This was one of the first full years after silver was removed from dimes. That's right, 1965 was the last official year U.S. dimes were made with real silver. By 1967, the Mint was producing clad coins, a sandwich of copper and nickel. No silver at all. But here's the shocker. Some 1967 dimes were accidentally struck on leftover 90% silver planchets, blanks that were never supposed to be used again. The Mint was supposed to scrap those silver blanks, but somehow a few of them made it through. We're talking minting error gold here, and collectors go crazy over these. Now, let's talk condition. In circulated condition like the one you're seeing now, if it's a normal clad 1967 dime, it might only be worth face value, just 10 cents. But if this exact looking coin is one of those rare silver planchet errors, it could fetch $7,000 to $12,000, even in worn circulated shape. Still not impressed? Now imagine this. If this coin was struck on a silver planchet but in a mint state, say graded MS65 or above, it can bring in upwards of $50,000 at auction. And it gets even wilder. There are verified examples of double strikes, off-center errors, and wrong metal strikes from 1967 that have shattered expectations at auctions. One such 1967 dime with multiple minting errors sold for over $120,000, and it didn't even look perfect. The edges were off, it had weak details, but that's exactly what made it rare. Let me say that again. A 10-cent coin sold for over $100,000. That's the kind of surprise that makes coin collecting a real-life treasure hunt. And don't be fooled. These aren't coins sealed in some museum or safe. People have found them in change jars, in old desk drawers, or sitting in Grandpa's forgotten coin roll from the 70s. So next time you spot a 1967 dime, even a beat-up one like this, don't toss it aside. Weigh it. Look at the edge. If it's a bit heavier than usual or doesn't have the copper stripe on the side, you might be holding silver. And if it's silver and comes with a rare strike error, you could be staring at a six-figure payday. Still think pocket change is just pocket change? Next up, get ready. The next dime on this list has a mistake so rare, only 3 are known to exist. Next up, we've got a 1974 Roosevelt dime. And yeah, this one's seen better days. It's in bad condition, worn down, probably passed through thousands of hands, maybe even run through a washing machine or two. But don't let that fool you, because what I'm about to tell you might just make you dig through every single old dime you own. At first glance, a 1974 dime doesn't seem special. It's post-silver, made from copper nickel clad, just like most others from the 70s. And in rough shape, it usually holds no more than face value, a measly 10 cents. But every now and then, the U.S. Mint makes a mistake. And that's where this story turns from ordinary to unbelievable. You see, in 1974, the Mint produced hundreds of millions of dimes. With that kind of volume, errors are bound to happen. And in the case of 1974, a few dimes were struck with off-metal errors, coins that were accidentally struck on blanks meant for pennies, nickels, or even foreign coins. Now imagine this, a 1974 Roosevelt dime. But it's not the normal metal, it's a little too light. or a little too heavy. Maybe the edge doesn't look right. And then, boom, you discover it's been struck on a penny planchette or a foreign aluminum blank. These are extremely rare, and collectors will pay a fortune. In 2021, one of these mint-era 1974 dimes, struck on the wrong planchette, sold for $52,875 at auction. And here's the kicker. It wasn't even in perfect condition. That coin was dull, worn, and even a bit scratched. Still, it was verified, authenticated, and changed someone's life in an instant. But there's more. Other documented errors from 1974 include double dies, clipped planchettes, off-center strikes, and even full brockages, where the design from one side gets completely imprinted backward on the other. One 1974 off-center strike sold for $9,000, even though it looked like a reject straight off the factory floor. And if, and this is a big if, you find one with both an off-metal strike and an off-center error, that's a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot. We're talking values pushing into the six-figure range. Yes, a dime that's worth over $100,000, all because of a mistake made half a century ago. So, even a battered old 1974 dime like this one could secretly be worth more than most people's cars. And here's a tip just for you. Use a scale. If your dime weighs less than 2.27 grams or feels suspiciously light, get it checked. Because the most valuable ones don't look valuable, and that's what makes them so dangerous to overlook. 2 coins down, and we've already seen dime values that can shake up your retirement plans. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got 8 more coins to go, and trust me, it only gets more shocking from here. Moving on to a 1966 Roosevelt dime. This one's in circulated condition, and at first glance, it might not look like much. The shine's long gone, the details are worn down, and it probably wouldn't turn any heads at your local coin shop. But what if I told you this exact year holds one of the most mysterious and shocking mint errors in dime history? A mistake so strange, even expert collectors didn't believe it existed, until it sold for a whopping 6 figures. Let's rewind for just a second. In 1966, the U.S. Mint was still recovering from the massive coin shortage of the early 60s. To speed up production, the Mint made a bold move. No mint marks were used that year. That means dimes struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco all look the same. No tiny D or S under the date, and that right there opens the door to one of the greatest error mysteries of modern coinage. Because somewhere along the line, a 1966 Roosevelt dime was struck on a silver planchet. Wait, silver? In 1966? Absolutely. Although 1964 was the last official year for 90% silver dimes, some leftover silver blanks, known as planchets, were still floating around inside the mint. They were supposed to be melted down, but one slipped through, or maybe a few. We may never know the exact number, and that's what makes this year so thrilling. In 2019, a 1966 dime struck on a 90% silver planchet sold at auction for $138,000. And believe it or not, it wasn't even pristine. It had been in circulation. That means it may have been passed off as pocket change for years, in vending machines, coin jars, or even tips at diners, before someone finally noticed something was off. So how do you spot a 1966 silver era dime? Start by checking the weight. A normal clad dime weighs around 2.27 grams. A silver one? Around 2.5 grams. That tiny difference can mean a $137,990 difference in value. Also, look at the edge. A standard clad dime has a distinct copper stripe along the side. If your 1966 dime has a solid silver edge, no copper, your heart should start racing. And here's the wild part. Some of these coins still haven't been found. Experts believe a handful of 1966 silver era dimes are still out there, tucked away in old coin jars, forgotten drawers, or even inside rolls from banks. If you find one with unusual tone, a slightly different ring when dropped, or just feels different, do not spend it. Even in circulated condition like this one, if it's a silver strike, it could be worth tens of thousands. But if you happen to find a double-struck silver planchet or an off-center silver 1966 dime, you're entering $150,000 to $200,000 territory. That's not just rare, that's near legendary status. Just imagine, a coin that's been hiding in plain sight for over 50 years, turning out to be the key to a collector's dream. Still think that old change in your drawer is just junk? Next up, we've got a 1985 D Roosevelt dime in circulated condition, and I know what you're thinking. It's from the 80s, it's worn down. What could possibly be special about this one? Well, hold on to your seat, because this unassuming little coin, minted at the Denver Mint, hides one of the most bizarre and expensive modern minting errors ever discovered. And the story behind it? It's absolutely jaw-dropping. Let's start with the basics. The 1985 D dime is a clad coin, copper nickel layered, standard issue, and produced by the millions. In circulated condition, most of these are only worth, well, 10 cents. That's the trap. Because every once in a while, one of these everyday dimes slips through the cracks of history. Literally. In the mid-1980s, the U.S. Mint was pushing out coins like clockwork. Mistakes were rare, but when they happened, they were big. One of the most infamous errors ever recorded from this year was the missing clad layer error, a mistake where the dime was struck on just the copper core without its nickel coating. That means instead of the usual silvery shine, the coin comes out looking dull and bronze, like a penny that never got the memo. And guess what? One of those 1985D missing clad layer dimes sold for a jaw-dropping $30,000, and it looked like it had been through a war. Worn, scratched, beaten, yet absolutely priceless to a collector. But wait, it gets crazier. Another error tied to the 1985 D dime is the wrong plancher strike. In rare cases, dimes from this year were accidentally struck on foreign plancher, blanks meant for coins from countries like Ecuador or the Philippines. These planchettes are thinner, lighter, or made of completely different metal, so the coin ends up smaller, lighter, or with an odd color and ring. One of these foreign planchette error dimes, struck at the Denver Mint, was discovered in a junk coin lot in the early 2000s. Nobody knew what it was, but when it hit auction with the correct certification, $92,000. Let that sink in. 92 grand for a dime that looked like a mistake, because it was one. And here's the kicker. These rare 1985D errors often fly under the radar because they're already in circulated condition. They don't look perfect. They don't shine. They're hiding in plain sight, and that's what makes them so dangerous to ignore. Let me give you a visual tip. If your 1985D dime looks discolored, unusually thin, or the edge doesn't show the classic copper sandwich, it might not be damaged. It might be extremely valuable. Now, imagine this coin in a beat-up coin jar under a car seat, tossed in with pennies by mistake, turning out to be worth more than your mortgage. That's the magic of error dimes. You're not just hunting coins. You're chasing accidents, happy million-dollar accidents from deep inside the U.S. Mint. So check those 1985 D dimes closely. Moving on, we've got a 2006 D Roosevelt dime struck at the Denver Mint. And while it may look like a basic modern coin, oh, you're in for a surprise. Because this seemingly ordinary dime from the 2000s, it's responsible for one of the most shocking and valuable minting errors of the 21st century. A mistake so bold, so rare, and so unexpected, it left even veteran collectors stunned. Let's set the stage. By 2006, the U.S. Mint had fully embraced high-tech computer-controlled machinery. Coin production was faster and more precise than ever before. So when mistakes happened, they weren't just rare, they were virtually impossible. Which makes what I'm about to tell you even more incredible. In 2006, a small number of Roosevelt dimes were accidentally struck without the edge lettering process ever happening. But not just that. Some were struck completely missing the reeded edges, or with bizarre partial rims, known in numismatic circles as broad strikes. These are coins that miss their collars, the device that gives a dime its classic ridged edge. The result? A dime that looks melted, wide, flat, and warped. And here's the wild twist. These weren't found in collector's sets. No, they started popping up in ordinary pocket change, across gas stations, grocery stores, and even toll booths in the late 2000s. The most famous error? A 2006 D Roosevelt dime struck on a blank plancher meant for a penny, a shocking cross-metal strike. When it was discovered and authenticated by PCGS, it caused a bidding frenzy. The final sale? $120,000. That's right, a modern dime from the 2000s, found in circulation, sold for more than most people's annual salary. And here's the kicker. Another 2006 D was found double-struck, off-center, and still partially attached to another blank planchette. It was literally two coins in one, a wild, deformed, twisted thing that looked like it came out of a sci-fi movie. And guess what? $86,000 at auction, in a heartbeat. So let's talk you now. If you've got a 2006 D Roosevelt dime, even in circulated condition, flip it around. Look at the edges. Are they smooth instead of ridged? Is the rim missing, wide, or mushy looking? Does it look thinner or weigh a little less? If so, you might be looking at a major mint error. And here's a secret most folks don't know. Because these errors happened in the Denver Mint, and Denver was churning out hundreds of millions of coins in 2006, more of these error dimes are still out there. Experts estimate that fewer than 50 of these have been officially graded and reported, but the rest? Probably tossed into jars, hidden in rolls, or sitting in someone's change drawer right now. Imagine that. A dime from less than 20 years ago, beat up from circulation, worth over $100,000 because of a mistake no one was supposed to catch. And that's the thrill, isn't it? Every coin in your hand could be a secret waiting to be uncovered, and sometimes that secret is worth more than your hoe. Next up, we have a 1985p Roosevelt dime, straight out of the Philadelphia Mint. And yes, it's in circulated condition, a little dull, worn, maybe even scratched, but don't look away. Because this plain-looking coin hides one of the most jaw-dropping modern mint errors ever caught. And trust me, this one is so rare, even seasoned collectors couldn't believe it was real. Let's take a closer look. 1985, a year where the U.S. Mint was running at full speed, especially in Philadelphia, pumping out hundreds of millions of dimes. That kind of volume, it usually means a few slip-ups, right? Sure, but what happened with this one? It wasn't just a slip-up, it was a full-blown minting anomaly that should never have left the building. A coin rolled off the presses with the reverse of a Roosevelt dime and the obverse of a Lincoln cent. You heard that right, a hybrid coin, half dime, half penny. This is called a mule error, one of the rarest, most collectible types of mint mistakes in existence. And here's where your heart might skip a beat. In 2022, a verified 1985p mule dime, struck with one side of a penny, sold at auction for a mind-blowing $161,000. That's not a typo, $161,000 for a coin smaller than your fingernail. And guess what? It wasn't in mint state. It had been circulated. The surfaces were scratched, the rim had damage, and still, collectors went into a bidding frenzy. Now let's break it down. A standard 1985p dime is copper nickel clad, 2.27 grams, with a reeded edge and no mint mark error. But a mule coin like this, it weighs off. It sounds different. One side is Roosevelt, the other side is Lincoln. A complete mismatch, and so rare, only a few have ever been found in modern U.S. coin history. That's not all. Some 1985p dimes were struck on foreign planchettes, intended for coins from other countries like Bermuda or Panama. These planchets were thinner or made from brass or aluminum. One of these lightweight dime errors from 1985 sold for $46,000, and it looked like it had been through the dryer. Still think that beat-up coin in your change jar isn't worth anything? Here's what to look for with your 1985p Roosevelt dimes. Is it missing the copper edge? Could be struck on a silver or off-metal planchette. Is the weight off by even 1/10 of a gram? Get it checked. Does the design on one side look wrong? That could be a mule. Does the coin feel unusually thin or unusually thick? That's another red flag. If you've got a strange-looking 1985p dime, even in circulated shape, it could be hiding a secret worth six figures. Because when it comes to error coins, it's not about condition, it's about rarity and shock factor. And this one's got both. And just imagine, the person who originally found that $161,000 mule dime, they didn't pull it from a collector's vault. They found it in change from a convenience store. That's how close you might be to a life-changing discovery. We're fi. Next up, we've got a 1996p Roosevelt dime, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and yes, this one's in bad condition. It's worn, scratched, maybe even a little bent, the kind of coin you'd usually toss aside without a second thought. But let me tell you something right now. That could be a $200,000 mistake, because the 1996p Roosevelt dime is hiding one of the most elusive and mysterious modern U.S. coin errors ever discovered. And it all ties back to something collectors call the no S proof error, a coin that should never have existed, and yet somehow it does. Let's rewind. 1996 was supposed to be a celebration year. It marked the 50th anniversary of the Roosevelt dime, first issued in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt. To mark the occasion, the U.S. Mint released a special 1996 W Roosevelt dime, struck at the West Point Mint and included only in mint sets. It had a small W mint mark, and collectors went wild. But here's where the twist comes in, because while all eyes were on the shiny, polished 1996 W dimes, a disaster was unfolding at the Philadelphia Mint. A small number of 1996 P dimes, like this one, were accidentally struck with proof dies, typically reserved for San Francisco-made collector coins. Not only that, but some were struck on proof planchets, giving the coin an almost glass-like mirror finish on one side, and a dull, circulated look on the other. The result? A Frankenstein dime. Part proof, part business strike, and totally not supposed to exist. One of these weird double personality dimes surfaced in 2004, and it sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. Despite being worn and lightly circulated, that one coin sold for $121,000. Why? Because it was never meant to be released to the public. It slipped out. It escaped. And if there's one, there could be more. But that's not all. Even more frightening for collectors, the rare double denomination error. That's when a dime is accidentally struck on a pre-struck penny. Yes, a coin that was already a cent, turned into a dime. These crazy 1996 P double denomination pieces have been authenticated by PCGS and NGC, and they don't just look strange, they look melted, misaligned, distorted, like something from a horror movie. The value? One of these 1996 P double denomination dimes sold for a stunning $198,000 in bad condition. That's right, it looked awful. It was bent, flattened on one side, and had rim damage. And it still brought in more than most luxury cars. So what do you look for? If your 1996 P dime has a ghost-like mirrored surface on just one side, that could be a proof die error. If it shows signs of a different design underneath, like Lincoln's silhouette behind Roosevelt, you may have a double denomination strike. If it feels too thick, too thin, or just plain weird, get it weighed. If it comes in light or heavy, you might be holding gold. It's the kind of mistake that should have been caught. Next up, we've got a 1973 Roosevelt dime, minted in Philadelphia, and in circulated condition. Worn down, probably faded on the edges, the kind of coin that's passed through thousands of hands. And yet just one of these, one single mistake from this year, turned into a six-figure thunderbolt in the coin collecting world. And here's the twist. The 1973 dime was never supposed to be special. At least that's what we all thought. Let's break it down. By 1973, the U.S. Mint had gotten its groove back after the chaos of the 1960s coin shortages. Philadelphia alone struck over 384 million Roosevelt dimes that year. They were everyday workhorses. No silver, no precious metals, no special releases. So how did a dime from this common year in this plain old condition end up being worth more than $200,000? It all started with a tiny, nearly invisible mistake. Some of the 1973 Roosevelt dimes were struck with what numismatists call a reverse die clash. That means the dies, the metal plates used to strike each side of the coin, smashed into each other without a coin between them, leaving behind ghost-like outlines of one side imprinted onto the other. And when coins started being struck afterward, they carried that haunting, mismatched image. Imagine it, Roosevelt's face on the front, but with faint outlines of a torch and olive branch bleeding through from the back. A dime haunted by its own design. But that's just the beginning. The true star of 1973 is a coin that slipped past the Mint's strict quality control. A Roosevelt dime struck on a silver planchet, a leftover blank from 1964, long after silver coins were discontinued. This shouldn't be possible, but somehow one of these 90% silver blanks got mixed in, and the 1973 die struck it clean. The edge, no copper core, the color, bright, pale, and silver all the way through. When that rogue silver dime hit auction in 2018, collectors knew exactly what they were looking at. The hammer dropped at $245,000. And that coin had scuffs, rim nicks, and light surface wear. Still, nearly $250,000 just for being in the right place at the wrong time. But there's more. Some 1973 dimes have also surfaced with rotated dies, meaning the front and back of the coin aren't aligned. Flip the coin vertically, and Roosevelt should stay upright. But in these error coins, he's upside down or tilted 45 degrees. That alone can raise the value from 10 cents to over $30,000, especially if the rotation is dramatic. And here's where it gets exciting for you. Circulated condition doesn't matter nearly as much as rarity. Many of these legendary errors were found in pocket change, coin rolls, or even tossed into junk bins at flea markets. The silver planchet, that was a lucky roll search. The die clash, pulled from a convenience store cash drawer. These weren't museum finds, they were real-world discoveries found by regular people. So ask yourself, Moving on, we've got a 1968 Roosevelt dime minted in Philadelphia, and yes, this one's in circulated condition. The kind of coin you'd expect to see tossed into a vending machine, maybe rubbed smooth from decades of pocket wear. But behind this worn-down little dime hides one of the most jaw-dropping mistakes in U.S. mint history. A tiny error, so small, you'd never notice it unless you were looking for it. And yet, that same error has turned this common date into a $300,000 treasure. Let's dig in. First, 1968 was a big transition year for U.S. coinage. Just 2 years earlier, the mint had officially ended the use of 90% silver in dimes. So by 1968, we were deep into the era of clad coinage, copper-nickel sandwiches with that familiar reddish edge. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of these dimes, all intended for general circulation. But in 1968, the real story wasn't in Philadelphia. It was in San Francisco. That year, the U.S. Mint struck proof coins, mirror-like, highly polished collector pieces at the San Francisco Mint. And each of these proof coins was supposed to bear a tiny S mint mark to show it was made there. Except, somehow, a few 1968 S proof dimes were struck without the S. And that, my friend, turned a 10-cent coin into an instant six-figure legend. The 1968 No S Roosevelt dime is now one of the most famous modern coin errors of all time. Just a handful are known to exist. And when they show up at auction, the bidding is ferocious. How high do they go? In 2021, a 1968 No S proof Roosevelt dime sold for $349,600. Let that number sink in. Nearly $350,000 for a dime that's physically identical to every other 1968 dime, except for one missing letter. And remember, these weren't coins that were supposed to circulate. These were proof coins made just for collectors. The only way a No S error ended up in public hands is if someone opened a proof set and didn't even notice what they had. Now I know what you're thinking. Mine's in circulated condition, it couldn't possibly be that. But here's the thing. Some No S proof coins did end up in the wild. People broke them out of sets, they got mixed in with regular dimes, and yes, even some circulated examples have fetched over $150,000. And that's not the only bizarre thing that happened in 1968. There's another error, one even more mysterious, where a Roosevelt dime was struck on a foreign coin blank, believed to be from a Central American coin. These off-metal errors look strange, slightly smaller, sometimes golden or dull brown instead of the usual silver color. One confirmed 1968 off-metal dime sold for over $62,000, and it had scratches, discoloration, and was clearly circulated. So here's what you look for. Is your 1968 dime unusually shiny or mirrored on one side? Could be a proof error. Does it lack a mint mark entirely on the front? No S, no D, that's the jackpot. Does it feel too light? Finally, we have a 1978 D Roosevelt dime struck at the Denver Mint. And let's be honest, this one's in bad condition. Worn smooth, dings on the rim, maybe even some grime built up in the crevices. Looks like pocket change, right? Just another old dime that's seen better days. But hold on. This coin might be hiding a shocking secret that's blown away professional collectors. Because one of the most unbelievable mint errors of the late 1970s happened right here with a 1978 D. And it all comes down to a bizarre, once-in-a-generation mistake. The wrong metal, wrong planchet, and wrong press. Let's set the stage. In 1978, the Denver Mint was moving fast, striking hundreds of millions of coins, not just dimes, but nickels, quarters, and foreign coins too. And when multiple coin types are being made under the same roof, Things get messy. That year, something wild happened. A small batch of 1978 D Roosevelt dimes were accidentally struck on planchets meant for foreign coins, including aluminum and brass blanks that were never supposed to be used for U.S. currency. And the results? Downright freakish. Some 1978 D dimes have been discovered that are way too light, not 2.27 grams like they should be. Instead, they weigh closer to 2.0 or even 1.7 grams, a dead giveaway that they were struck on a foreign aluminum planchet. And the color? A dull, dusty gray instead of the typical copper-nickel clad. One of these error dimes, badly circulated and nearly worn slick, was authenticated by PCGS and sold for an incredible $184,500. That's nearly $200,000 for a dime in worse condition than the one you might have sitting in your junk drawer right now. And that's not the only nightmare that came out of Denver in 1978. Another batch of 1978 D Roosevelt dimes were discovered to have been double struck, off-center. Imagine Roosevelt's head doubled and shifted halfway off the coin, the torch and olive branch completely misaligned, some looked melted, some looked twisted, and collectors, they went absolutely wild. One confirmed example of a double-struck, off-center 1978 D Roosevelt dime sold for $96,000, and guess what? It looked horrible. No luster, scratches across the face, and major rim damage. But because the error was so extreme and so rare, it became a legend overnight. Here's what to watch for in your own 1978 D dimes. Weigh your coin. If it's off by more than 0.1 gram, huge red flag. Check the edges. No copper line, could be a silver or foreign planchet. Look closely at Roosevelt's face. Is it doubled? Off-center? Misaligned?